I started fertility 4 years ago, looking at the topic of infertility and inability to conceive. And what struck me back then is it is such a big problem that is under the radar and not being talked about. So 1 in 6 couples has trouble getting pregnant, and the quota is increasing even more in these years. And yet, at the same time, there was almost zero information to be found online. The customer journey, if you will, was absolutely horrendous from a patient perspective, and it was heavily stigmatized. And given on the one hand the sort of lack of a platform providing information and guidance to patients, as well as the business opportunity that came with it, led me 4 years ago to found Fertility. I think a lot of startups, they kind of want to go for the sexy, game-changing parts, but a lot of times you need to spend time with firstly understanding the bread and butter operations of a fertility clinic, of the nurse's side of the equation. So really just getting a thorough understanding of how it's done today, and then of course challenging this. What could you do better? What do you think is repetitive? What do you think is not great from a patient's perspective? And this would actually be my last piece of the puzzle, just taking different perspectives, taking the perspective of the patient, taking the perspective of the doctor, taking the perspective of the nurse, and then really asking yourself, does it have to be that way? Maybe there is something you can learn from other industries. I mean, within healthcare, fertility is one segment, but there's other industries who have done extremely well or who are extremely innovative when it comes to patient centricity, when it comes to automating or digitizing certain steps of the journey. So really looking at other industries, even outside of healthcare, and thinking, well, is there something we can learn from this? Is there something we can apply to the fertility segment? It's definitely a battle for talents, or even a war for talents, right? Especially as a startup, it's always an uphill battle. There are certain things you just cannot offer, such as you have smaller budgets, both for the salaries, but even for recruiting activities. So definitely, you're at a disadvantage when it comes to sheer salaries. You often don't have a team to offer. When you hire a head of HR, for example, they won't have a team to support them. They will basically be the team, and they will have to maybe even build their function. It's a lot of it's kind of the opposite of coming in and having all the resources at hand, but rather having very little to work with, or having to be very frugal in building what you need to build. And often on top of that, the perspective is unclear or considered unclear. Per definition, startups, the future is uncertain, and unless you're profitable or unless you're very far down the road, you have an unclear perspective of continuation. So all of that is against us, and plus you don't have a big name. You don't have a big name. You don't have a big brand. It's very you like basically this David versus Goliath situation.